disturbed is high.
So it's a technique for figuring out where to dig, basically.
Yes, sir.
In this case, do you use ground penetrating radar?
I believe they did in the front yard, yes, sir, but I don't recall it in the rear of the residence.
Is, in your training experience, is probing a much better way to do this than using the fancy technology?
It was for this one, yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been entered into evidence of State's Exhibit 18. Is this going to be an example, and do you see that, Detective?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, is that going to be an example of what the yard looked like before it was cleared?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 19, is this going to be an example of what the yard looked like after it was cleared, meaning swept and probed?
Yes, sir, as previously explained, the top layer comes off, it being the leaves, sticks, gravel, and then the flag indicates the probe locations.
And during this layer by layer process, are we taking pictures along the way to document?
Yes, sir, and documenting the depth through photography.
We're not going to show it all, but I wanted to show State's Exhibit 20. What is the jury looking at here?
Again, that is us, so shovels are used on the exterior of what would be the potential dig site, and that's just showing us trying to get to said layers so that a meticulous process can be done within the flags.
So based on your probing, you would determine that the flags were kind of the border of where you thought the torso would be?
The outline, yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 21, and I guess it's a similar photograph, but just a different location.
Yes, yes, sir, that's correct.
State's Exhibit 22.
Yes, sir. Same as the previous slide you showed, just a different angle.
State's Exhibit 23.
Again, the backyard, yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 24.
That's going to be the torso, and the obviously the flags are removed, but that's the meticulousness of getting down to the location of it.
So this took days to do.
Yes, sir. That's day 2.
And are you doing your best to preserve as many bones and as much evidence as you can in this process?
Yes, sir.
So this torso, is that the area that we looked at that was right next to the house?
Correct.
We have a diagram that will show it all in a minute.
Okay.
State's Exhibit 25, what's the purpose of this photograph?
Again, just to show the digging location. I believe that's going to be, again, the corner of the house, where the torso was located.
And State's Exhibit 26, what is this?
It's going to be the fence line, and again, through the documentation of photography and the depth, as you can see, there's a bone sticking out of the hole. So you stop everything at that point once you locate an item and you document it.
State's Exhibit 27, is that a close-up of that same hole?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 28.
Same, yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 29.
Going to be the same hole, I believe. Again, below those bones you just saw is the skull.
And so you've been able to look at these photographs that you're looking at and then going back to the report and comparing and contrasting. So we found the torso right by the house, and now we're finding leg bones and the skull in the second hole,
Yes, sir, by the fence line.
by the fence line. And again, the skull, it looks like, is deeper than where the leg bones were.
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 30.
Yes, sir, another hole
Is that gonna
on the
go-
fence line. Yes, sir.
What is the jury looking at right there?
That's going to be the skull. Yes, sir, that's the teeth coming out of the dirt there.
State's Exhibit 31.
A close-up photograph, the skull has now been removed, and a close-up photograph of the skull.
Do we see hair in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Do we also see what appears to be some type of injury to the skull?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, that's for someone else to comment on.
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 32, do we find other items in these holes?
Yes, sir. That is going to be from the fence line as well. I believe that's the same hole that the the legs and the skull were located in.
Does that appear to be a chainsaw, I guess, blade or chain?
Yes, sir. It appears to be a some kind of chainsaw blade or chain, a ring, and looks like some clear stone.
Case Exhibit 33, we're looking at another hole along the fence line.
Yes, sir.
Case Exhibit 34, are these going to be the arm bones?
Yes, sir.
Case Exhibit 35, are these the arm bones taken out of that third hole that we're now?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Case Exhibit 36, is that again a deeper part of, I guess, the next hole?
Yes, sir. I believe so. Again, just showing the depth.
Case Exhibit 37, is that going to be a piece of, I guess, the feet that were taken out of that fourth hole?
Yes, sir. And that's me holding it.
That's you?
I think so. Yes, sir.
Case Exhibit 38, I want to show this because this is going to be after the body was removed.
Yes, sir. And
Why do y'all have a backhoe in there?
to search the remainder of the yard.
You didn't use that to excavate the body.
No, sir.
Case Exhibit 39, what's the purpose of this photograph?
So the medical examiner responds to collect the bones, and this is just it's for them, and then it's for photography, just to show what has been removed.
It's Case Exhibit 40, what's the jury looking at here?
Yes, sir. So that's the diagram that Detective Kipple completed. And if you can see, so number 1 is going to be the torso location. Number 2, it's actually going to be in the middle because we found that one first. We found the torso first, but 2 is the next hole we discovered, which had the legs and the skull located in it. 3 is going to be the third hole with the arms, and then the 4th is the feet and additional small bones.
And then the numbers are going to be inside the home, these numbers.
Yes, so those are going to be labeled as the bedrooms inside the residence.
But those numbers aren't where the body parts were found, because it was a little confusing when you see 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s.
Correct, yes, sir. So that's just how he had it labeled inside the interior of the residence.
So it's the red numbers are the ones that are referring to the different holes where the body parts were found.
Yes, sir, those are the ones for the exterior.
All the questions I have, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Cross?
Good afternoon, Ms. Brooks.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ms. Brooks, you were in that backyard 7 days, right?
Yes, sir.
And you took pictures of the backyard?
Detective Kipple did, but yes, sir.
But the pictures that we saw, they're accurate?
Yes, sir.
Backyard?
Yes, sir, to my knowledge.
Okay. There were no trees in the backyard.
Not that I recall.
Okay. And the pictures showed that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if someone were to say, I was chained to a tree in the backyard, that there are no trees back there, right?
Not that I can recall, no, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have.
Yep. Anything else for the witness? All right, thank you. You're free to go.
Thank you, sir.
State call your next witness. Thanks, sir. Have a seat.
please the court.
Yes, sir.
Detective, please introduce yourself to the jury and recognize that they're on both sides.
My name is Detective Dennis Sullivan with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Homicide Cold Case Unit.
And how long have you been a police officer?
I've been a police officer for nearly 26 years.
How long have you been a homicide detective?
I've handled homicides and major cases for about 16 years.
And how long have you been in the cold case unit?
Between homicide and the cold case unit, that entire time.
I want to explain to the jury how you became involved in the case involving the remains of a Joni Gunter. Were you the lead detective on that case?
Yes, sir, I was.
And as the lead detective, what does that mean for the jury?
That means that I'm responsible for overseeing the entire investigation of this case.
Did you know who Joni Gunter was before your investigation began?
No, sir, I did not.
In the vast number of 16 years, typically when you respond to a homicide, is it because someone is dead and then you go and respond?
Yes.
This was a little unusual.
Very unusual, yes.
Tell the jury a little bit about how you first became involved in this case.
On the cold case unit, we obviously handle cold cases or cases that had been suspended that were once hot by the hot homicide teams, we call them. And on occasion, as part of our duties, we receive information from families, letters, inmates that want to help us, and even, in this case, private investigators.
And what was the information that you received?
I had received a phone call from a private investigator that I was familiar with. She told me on February 5th, it was in the early, it was about 9 a.m., beginning of my day, and she stated, "Hey, Detective Sullivan, I'm representing or I'm working with a client by the name of Sammy Evans, and he's in on a particular charge, and that he says he's housed or he's with the defendant, knows him or hangs out with him inside the jail, and has claimed that he has told him in detail that he has murdered 3 women."
So you say here, let's go ahead and do that. Did you eventually make the arrest of Russell Tillis in this case?
Yes.
Do you see him here in court?
Yes, I do.
Did you identify him and say where he's seated?
He's sitting to the right of Mr. Fletcher with the glasses, white mask, and the ponytail.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
The record shall so reflect.
This investigator gave you the name of her client, Sammy Evans, as well as the name of Russell Tillis.
Correct.
Now, during the course of your career, are you sometimes skeptical of information that you receive from the jail?
I usually always am skeptical about the information I receive from the jail. Yes, sir.
And did you have that same skepticism in this case?
Yes, I did.
Tell the jury what happened next.
Like I said, part of our duties in the cold case unit is that we receive letters from inmates, whether they're in prison or currently housed in the pretrial detention facility. They're looking to, try and get some substantial cooperation help. Maybe things are weighed on their mind. Maybe they were involved in something, and they, for whatever reason it is, they want to come forward and try and give us information. Sometimes they'll maybe embellish it and say they heard it from another person or in group talk, and they'll claim it to be information they heard. But we really have to do a lot to prove that the information's genuine. We just can't believe everything that we get. You don't believe everything you read in a letter, and you don't believe everything that you hear from somebody secondhand.
So I guess the first step is to talk to Mr. Evans.
Correct.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did. Myself and now retired Detective Gary Stuckey.
And Detective Stuckey, was he kind of your mentor in the homicide unit?
Very much so. Mentor, somebody who I respected greatly, was a 20-year veteran of working homicides, was the senior detective in all of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office at the time, and somebody who I looked up to and asked for his assistance to go over there with me.
So after talking to Mr. Evans, did you feel like it was appropriate to go about actually giving Mr. Evans a recording device?
Yes.
Explain to the jury what are the problems with having an inmate say they have information, yet not having a case to relate that to. In other words, do you need a body?
You don't necessarily need a body, but it's very problematic. It really creates a larger threshold for trying to prove that there is even a crime that had occurred. So you're trying to, get as much information you can, specifics as much as you can. You want to hear how the information flows from the person that you're getting the information from. I'm of the belief that, you know, the information comes from a person, they have no problem telling you that information. If you got to ask a bunch of probing questions, then you want to be, you know, highly critical and skeptic to make sure that it's all, you know, it all checks off. It's got to check off in here as much as in here, believe in it.
Sure. And I want to talk a little bit some of the issues that you deal with in cold case. Is one of the reasons why they put the most experienced detectives in cold case, because so much time has passed and evidence has been destroyed or lost or missing or things like that?
That's my belief, yes, sir. I think we're probably more equipped with our experience to handle stuff like that. And sometimes we can even give firsthand knowledge of the case if it's a couple years old and we remember that, or like in Detective Stuckey's case, and he would say, oh, I worked on that case when I first got in homicide. And we probably we don't know everything, obviously, but we had the experience to say, we've seen a lot, we can relate this, or I had a case that can, you know, was something like that or similar.
During the course of your career, have you had to investigate cases where the bodies have been under decomposition and have deteriorated?
Yes.
So after your first discussion with Mr. Evans, did you give him a recording device?
Yes, sir.
Explain how you do that and what that is.
Detective Stuckey and I conferred with the other detectives on the cold case team. We went back to the office. He and I were both, you know, under the belief that Sammy Evans had believed everything he was told, and it was very apparent to us in the interview. So at that time, we did a quick, we call it a powwow with the other detectives, strategy meeting, and we stated that the best thing at that point for everybody, and even Sammy, was to, you know, hear it from the horse's mouth, if I can use that analogy, and basically say, well, we believe what you're saying, but we need to hear it from him because it's still not relevant as much as we hear it from the defendant.
And explain for the jury how the wire works. Are you able to record, 24 hours? Can you turn it off and on, stuff like that?
You have the capability to turn it off and on. My belief at the time is I didn't want to give him that ability. He said that he had gained Mr. Tillis's confidence, so I didn't even explain to him he could turn it off. It's a small device, obviously, because we have to keep it hidden on his body without revealing too many tactics. And it's a very super sensitive recorder, but it usually gives you about 6 to 8 hours of recording time if left on. And for me, that's probably the best way to do it because it's like a door-to-door recording process. You hear me putting it on, you hear me talking to Mr. Evans, and then you hear him, either the recording device expires because of the time, or sometimes they'll come back to us and you hear us taking it off.
And so on February 5th, you gave the recording, and then later in the day, did you retrieve it from Mr. Evans?
Yes, my partner at the time, my partner now, Detective Glenn Workentine, he stayed later to retrieve it. And then a couple days later, we had one of the detectives who's now retired, Detective Dwayne Gray, had the accessibility to the software to download it. So we actually had to wait a couple days to get the information off the data recorder.
When Mr. Evans returned the device, did he indicate that he got it on a recording?
He was very confident he had it on the recorder.
So when you downloaded it, did you listen to it?
Yes, I did.
And that was on February 7th?
Yes, sir.
And did you listen to it by yourself, or were your fellow detectives with you?
No, I made copies, and I had, I thought, as many ears in my office, and coworkers or partners and experienced detectives in that office could listen to it, the better. It was, we didn't know that the majority of the recording was at the beginning, but I knew I had a full 6 to 8 hours of the recording, so I wanted to have it divided up. I would tell some to, hey, just take this part of it. Me and Detective Workentine is going to listen to this part or this part. And we split it up, and then we got the consensus to where all the data that we needed and the recording was at in there, the pertinent information.
Detective Sullivan, you've been doing this a long time. Was this, even for someone like you, shocking to hear these details?
It's probably the best recording of an incident that I've had, and I've wired up numerous people at the jail or confidential informants and whatnot. the most shocking one I've ever had in my career.
Did Mr. Evans also provide you with a map?
Yes, he did.
And was that map signed February 5th of 2016?
Yes, it was.
And was that map, did that help you recover the remains of who turned out to be Joni Gunter?
That map it was as precise and as accurate to me. I always claimed that it was, if you go to the Jacksonville property appraiser's office site, they always have like a little diagram, square diagram. It was nearly identical to that, and it was just impressive. I mean, he indicated paces from a point in the backyard to one hole to paces to another, and it was about as spot on as you could get.
Now, of course, the jury knows they're going to hear this, but I want to talk about, were there things that didn't even have to do with the killing and the dismemberment of Joni Gunter that you were able to corroborate as being true when you listened to the recording and then went back and investigated?
Absolutely.
Can you give a jury an example of that?
He mentioned that the defendant, he mentioned himself when he's talking to Mr. Evans that he dismembered the bodies. He mentioned that he used a reciprocating saw or a sawzall. He even mentioned the length of the blade, all which was corroborated except for the sawzall. Was the blades were found in a tool shed during a subsequent search warrant of the property. He mentioned hanging the body up using chains in his garage, which we have photographs and found that as well. And so and he also mentioned, where he would chain them up in rooms of the house. Mentioned that he like soundproof rooms, and so the house was modified or made, where windows were either boarded or covered up. It was dark, plain rooms, metal frame beds. Once we saw that in the house, it became very clear how accurate the recording was.
Did it become real at that point?
Frighteningly real.
Were you able to confirm that the defendant had a brother?
Yes.
Did the defendant on this recording talk about what his brother did for a living and whether or not he operated an auto shop and got in trouble or anything like that?
He talked extensively about his brother, Claude. He mentioned how he owned a body shop, or he called it a chop shop. He talked about Claude's involvement in this case, or in the interaction or the involvement with the victim. He mentioned that he had been involved in a crime with Claude about a vehicle, taking a stolen vehicle over there, and that he had to make up a phony bill of sale for that. And I actually researched that, and I did see that Detective Brian Bradley and his sergeant in the auto crimes unit had indeed investigated that type of incident. I even saw the information where they asked Mr. Tillis for a bill of sale and everything like that. And Mr. Tillis was talking about his brother extensively and how he was a slick talker and could talk like a church deacon on Sunday, he would say.
And were you able to confirm that the defendant was in fact the owner of that piece of property?
Yes, the defendant is the owner was the owner of the property at that time.
3551 East Bowden Circle.
Yes.
Bowden Circle East.
Bowden Circle East, yes, sir.
Were you also able to confirm that the city of Jacksonville had scheduled that piece of property for demolition?
I found that out, by actually going out there and seeing the property for myself. There were bright orange posted signs from the city that it was slated for demolition.
And that was one of the things that the defendant indicated in the recording, that he was worried about that demolition being the method by which they would discover this body.
Yes, it's kind of how he started this whole conversation with Mr. Evans. He knew that the property was getting scheduled for demolition by the city, and he was worried that the body would be found by the septic tank in the back area. So he was thinking of ways that he could get people to either try and help him or he was worried about that body being found.
In the defendant's description of these crimes, did he indicate that he had multiple women that he would find on Phillips Highway and bring them back?
Yes, sir.
Did you find evidence of that in his home?
I did, yes, sir.
And what was that?
Inside the house, we found multiple, I mean, volumes of paperwork where he would find women of the night, per se, that he would see like their, where they had been arrested, or, you know, he had personal names. He was like sticky notes of names of women, phone numbers, just feminine clothing, items that showed that other women had been there. We've seen letters from women from prison, and that we end up following up and trying to talk to, that actually knew him and would verify some of the information that he mentioned on the wire.
Did you also make contact with a Tabitha Nicole Hogg?
Yes.
And was that based on the paperwork found in his home?
Yes, found her name and a phone number, tracked her down by calling it and trying to speak to numerous relatives or people, and ended up finding, I think, a boyfriend, and ended up speaking to her, and she'd been waiting to speak to us.
Okay, I'm going to go through a series of photographs, Detective, before we listen to the wire, and you can point to things in those photographs, explain what they are, and then say if anything was in the photographs that was mentioned in the wire that you could corroborate.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yes, sir.
It should be on your screen up here momentarily. Start from the beginning. Work. States Exhibit 1 is this Google Images photograph of the defendant's home.
Yes, it is.
And is Gail Bryant's home right here?
Yes, that's her mobile home, modular home there, a vinyl white house with the white porch on the front.
States Exhibit 2, 3, and 4. What do these photographs show?
These are photographs that I found doing Google Maps, Google Earth of the property, and it gave me multiple time periods of when 3551 Bowden Circle East was photographed. Basically, Google's been out mapping everywhere, and I came across these pictures of the property. You'll see that Miss Bryant's house in this photograph is to the right, but it corroborated some of the things that we had heard either in the wire with the large tarps, hearing about that the house had been condemned because of unsafe structures in the house, big fencing that the city had gotten onto Mr. Tillis about, and so it just further corroborated that information.
We'll skip through some of it. I'll go directly to States Exhibit 7 and then States Exhibit 8. What is States Exhibit 8?
This is the sign that was out in front of the property of Mr. Tillis's residence, that was showing that the property had been condemned and that it was being slated for demolition by the city of Jacksonville.
What is States Exhibit 10?
We were told, we'd gotten information from neighbors and just visual observations ourselves and just hearing from other officers that the house was booby-trapped, or the perimeter was booby-trapped. So this picture here is of I believe a fence line in front of the property, and these are box razor blades that we found, tons of them everywhere, in the railing of the fence, and also there's some pictures that we have where where somebody had nailed or hammered box razor blades inside the landscaping bushes of the house too. So if you tried to get on that property, you were going to get cut by these razor blades, and other things like this, the spike boards. These were buried along the fence line at the base of fences in several areas too. So if somebody got into that property or jumped the fence, which was an issue for us too, we had to be aware of this, and we tried our best to find as much of this as we could, but we were always aware that there was some potentially booby-trapped areas around the property.
So the combination of the tarps and the booby traps and your training experience, does that show a very inaccessible home?
Very, yes.
Would that also give a person the privacy necessary to kill and dismember human beings?
I would think so, in my opinion, yes, sir.
So States Exhibit 12, what are we looking at here?
This is the front of the residence. If you're inside the front fence property line through the double gate, and you're going in about 50 feet or 50 yards per se, this looks right at this front, like a Florida room addition. Just to the right of that, you can't really see it, but there's a garage, and to the left, is not a garage, but like a carport that once housed a makeshift apartment that he had to just take down. To the left with the washing machines, this is the actual garage where we found the chains that were used to hang the victims up and dismember them.
This is Exhibit 13, is that a close-up of that carport area?
Yes, this is the carport area and the front, there's one of the front entrances there, I think, just to the left of the frame. But this carport area, if you'll see at the top, was actually some indoor roofing tiles for a ceiling. And you can see it was also insulated as well. And that was what we later learned was like a little makeshift apartment.
This is Exhibit 14, what are we looking at here?
This is to the right of the property still. If you go beyond that little makeshift apartment carport area, you walk to this, and this is like a little entryway into the backyard.
This is Exhibit 15.
This is the actual very back of the property, and you're looking to the left, which is to the Eichenlaub's house and their fence that adjoin the property of Mr. Tillis.
This is Exhibit 16.
It's the opposite direction of that view. This is to the right. This overhang carport area you see, this is where if you walked in through that wooded walkway that I told you about leading to the backyard, it would get you right to that overhang carport.
State's Exhibit 17.
This is if you walk around from the back of the house and you're going to the Eichenlaub's property to the left of Mr. Tillis's. This is just the area between his trailer and the fence and then the neighbor's property.
Do we see evidence of a cut-up tree here in the background as well as a tree?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 18.
This is still the backyard. From this angle, you're almost standing just to the side of the little overhang, walking through the wooden archway to the backyard and just looking slightly to the 10 o'clock position of the backyard. Just here to the left at the lower part of the frame is where we were described that we would find one of the portions of the victim's body.
The jury's already seen a bunch of these, so we're just going to go ahead and skip. All the way to State's Exhibit 56. Detective, in the wire, did the defendant indicate that he had a spot by the creek where he was able to dispose of bodies?
He indicated that he had a place down the street that he got rid of the other two at.
They describe it as swampy.
It's a swamp. It's a Pottsburg Creek off of Belfort Road. You can just see in the middle of there, Bowden Circle East. And then to the left, you'll see it labeled Pottsburg Creek. But on each side of Belfort Road going into Bowden Circle East, it's all swampy creek area. It's very inaccessible.
State's Exhibit 58, is this a picture of that creek?
Yes, it is.
The detective, the jury's going to hear about the defendant saying that multiple people he disposed of somewhere in this area. In your training and experience, would you be able to find the dismembered remains of a human being that had been somewhere in this creek?
No.
Explain that to the jury. Why? I mean, it seems, we watch TV shows, and it seems like y'all can do anything you want. Why can't you find it?
It's, unfortunately, it's not television. Television likes to glamorize and embellish things for the entertainment of people. But even in this matter, we knew that it would even be difficult to find the remains or a skeletonized person on his 1 acre of property. I've taken courses in surface skeletons and buried bodies out at the IPTM school at UNF, and it was always very difficult because, especially in the area, in Florida, it's environmentally against us. But in areas like this, you always have to be concerned with animal activity. You don't know where you're looking for depth-wise. You got to find a particular area. And even if you're in an area where somebody says, you could still miss it. Cadaver dogs, unfortunately, aren't always accurate. And based upon their demeanor, what's going on, you don't know if they're going to be temperamental enough to help you out as well. So it's sometimes you just have to be lucky.
Now, did you do a full-scale search of Pottsburg Creek for other possible remains?
Yes, we have City of Jacksonville has Captain John Long with the fire department who has a cadaver dog, and he helps us routinely in cases like this. Unfortunately for him, all I could give him was a 1 mile radius, which included the crime scene and just an estimation what down the road would mean. or down the street. And I just told Captain Long, basically, here's your search area. And he looked at it, and he immediately knew it would be impossible, even with his cadaver dog.
State's Exhibit 59, what are we looking at here, specifically this?
This right here is, it looks like a tarp that he had used. And this is actually to the right of the frame. This would be the Eichenlob's house. If you're looking at it from the street, it would be on the left, but you're looking at it from the backyard perspective, so it's to the right. This mauve-colored painted door is the back of the garage.
State's Exhibit 60, is that the door into the garage?
Yes, it is.
State's Exhibit 61, is this from inside the garage out?
It's from inside the garage looking out at the photos we just saw.
State's Exhibit 62, is that a close-up of the tarp?
Another tarp covering the door, giving limited view inside.
State's Exhibit 63, is this that garage?
This is the garage to the house at 3551 Bowden Circle East.
And there's a number, we'll have other pictures that show it, but just in State's Exhibit 63, do we see a power washer?
Yes.
Do we see chains hanging from the ceiling?
Yes, sir. That one, and then just to the right a little bit is another one, I believe. No, sir, just right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, right there.
And then, do we also have evidence of metal being cut?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 64 is a different angle.
Yes, just to the left of this, in the frame here with the diamond-shaped doors, those face Bowden Circle East. And so that's the front of the garage entry.
65, is that a close-up of those chains hanging from the ceiling?
Yes, sir. There's right there, and then there's the other set right there.
State's Exhibit 66 is a close-up of that.
Yes, sir.
67, another close-up.
Yes, sir. Same chains.
And 68.
Those are the actual chains that were collected from the ceiling roof rafters.
State's Exhibit 69.
These are multiple tools. We were interested in the cutting tools at that time.
State's Exhibit 70 is a close-up of those circular saws.
Yes, circular skill saws that were inside the garage.
State's Exhibit 71 is a close-up of the pressure washer.
Yes, sir. The same pressure washer that you saw in the earlier slide up against the wall.
State's Exhibit 72 and 73. What are these two pictures of?
This is one of the rooms that concerned us, that we seemed to think was described to us by, the victims and also inside from the recording from Mr. Tillis. This is a room that when you walk in through the front door via the sunroom and you take a right, it goes back to the back of the house or to the back side of the house.
State's Exhibit 74. What are we looking at here?
This is the kitchen area from the sunroof going up here to the little patio way and into the front of the house.
Obviously, we see a large axe that's propped up the door.
Yes, an axe door prop. Yes, sir.
And then what are we looking at here, this long panel thing?
This looks like some sort of either room divider or of some sorts.
And could that be used to cover a door area?
Absolutely, I would think so, yes, sir.
75, what are we looking at here?
This is also the front sunroom. You're actually looking from the little front doorway pad to the left, and that doorway right here is going into the garage area.
76 is a close-up of those areas, I guess?
Yes, sir. This is the pad area here. There's that divider, and then going this way would be the garage area.
Is there a bicycle there?
Sir, yes, sir, there is a bicycle there.
State's Exhibit 77, is that a close-up of different mechanical tools?
Yes, sir.
78, what are we looking at here?
This is the bedroom of the house that we believe that Mr. Tillis's mother had once resided in before she passed away. So if you go into the front door of the house, you take a left and go all the way down to the end of the hall. This would be one of the rooms down at the end of the hall.
And I guess this would be considered sort of the master bedroom, so to speak?
A master bedroom, yes, and then I think we also had some sticky notes that were on the door frame in this bedroom too.
Case Exhibit 79.
This is the main dining living room area, just circling the front door to the residence that would, you'd come in through the sunroom. The other room with the yellow bedspread is back that way, and then the main bedrooms would be back down this direction, down the hallway.
Case Exhibit 80, and this is going to be a close-up of this table on 79. What are we
Yes, sir.
looking at here?
This is for lack of a better term, it's a glass crack pipe or methamphetamine pipe used to smoke, heat up at the bottom to melt it, and then inhale it once it's heated up.
Is that consistent with the defendant's description of the methamphetamine cooking he was doing
Yes, it
during
was.
this period of time?
Yes, sir.
Case Exhibit 81, is this a hammer?
That is indeed a hammer.
Case Exhibit 82, picture of the kitchen.
Yes.
83, what are we looking at here?
This is in one of the rooms when you go down to the left down the hallway on the floor. We noticed that these items here are used for cooking and manufacturing methamphetamines. Muriatic acid is one of the chemicals involved in that. This is obviously what we call a chore boy dish scrubber, but it's used as a filtering system and also for the copper and its properties to help cook methamphetamines.
Case Exhibit 84, is this that room where the meth items were found on the floor?
Yes, sir. I'm going to circle them down here at the bottom, but this is the doorway here coming from the entryway to the left down towards the end of the hall, and I think you can just barely see it right in here is the entryway to what I call the mother's bedroom.
Case Exhibit 85, is this the other view of that room?
This is the other end of that bedroom, yes, sir. Of note is that these windows were not windows, but they had sheets or something over them. This was also a window that was boarded up as well.
Case Exhibit 86, what are we looking at here?
We're looking at also what I call another Florida or sunroom in the back towards the house I believe from the kitchen area.
Do we also see the blacked out windows in this?
Blacked out windows, louvered windows, yes, sir.
Do we also see a disassembled bed frame?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 87, what are we looking at here?
These are actually hacksaw blades that were recovered from, I believe, the garage area and the detached garage area.
State's Exhibit 88, what are we looking at here?
These are actually reciprocating saw blades that were also recovered from the garage and or the detached garage area.
Reciprocating saw blades are also referred to as sawzalls.
Sawzalls, yes, sir.
That's SAWZALL.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 89, are those close-ups of that?
Yes, sir. And also, too, of note is that we were, I think these are indicative of some of the sizes of the blades as well, but we had blades that were consistent and corroborated with the descriptions that we heard in the wire.
State's Exhibit 90, another picture of those blades.
Yes, sir.
91, are these other items that were found in the yard?
Yes, from the yard and actually, too, from the carport area where the once the apartment area was.
State's Exhibit 92, is that going to be an overall shot of that carport area?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 93 shows where some of those items were found.
Yes, sir.
94, there are other items that could have inflicted blunt force trauma.
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 95, is this an overall of all of those items?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 96, do we have other saws?
Yes, this is actually in the detached garage area, showing other tools that may have been used.
97, do we have more circular saws?
Yes, sir.
98, what are we looking at here?
Inside Mr. Tillis's residence, numerous papers. This is just one of him where apparently he could go online. This is from the Department of Corrections website. It's a printout. It's a public site. You can go on there and type in somebody's name to see if they've been incarcerated or if they're released or currently serving. And this is a printout of this, of Miss Michelle Pierce. He somehow got her date of birth. You can see right here her Department of Corrections number, which is also this. But she turned out to be one of the women that he was speaking to, pen paling with, or whatever you might want to say it is.
And states 99, is this other information surrounding Ms. Pierce?
Yes, you'll see that at the top, we had the same person, a photocopy of her ID, and all these names, I tried to go through and make contact with these persons, like Bridget, Michelle, Julie Williams, all these people we tried to make contact with.
And did some of those people that you tried to locate, they ended up being deceased for unrelated reasons?
They did. We even had Miss Tabitha Nicole Hogg's name on there, but yes, some of the names, like Bridget Allen, later located her in the investigation, but she has since been deceased.
Did you ever, in your investigation, Detective Sullivan, find women that were in consensual relationships with Mr. Tillis?
Yes,
And did some of those women even give details that would make it seem like they should not be in a consensual relationship with Mr. Tillis?
repeat that for me,
They would
please.
give details that sometimes bad things would happen to them, that they would stay with Mr. Tillis.
Yes, there was some of the ladies depicted relationships that were violent, that were, I guess, mutually beneficial.
Well, I think this will actually be a good time for the jury to take their next break. So let's go ahead and do that. Members of the jury, during this break, as with all breaks, don't talk about the case, don't look up anything about it. Enjoy your walk over to your jury room.
Acts of some sort against women, which are not part of this case, not be mentioned in this trial. Extremely prejudicial, because now no witnesses to cross-examine about it, so I would ask for a mistrial.
Well, I haven't even ruled on the objection yet, so what's your response to the objection?
The point of the questioning, Your Honor, was based on defendant's opening statement and repeated cross-examination